Hello, my name is Helen Mayer. I am a senior conservator at the National Archives, London. Our archive collection contains over 15 million archival records, and it is the official archive for UK central government and for England and Wales. The National Archives holds the records of the UK government, its predecessors, and the central law courts. It is our duty to preserve these records and to make them as accessible and available as possible. I would like to introduce the High Use Document Project. This was established in 2014 whilst working alongside the National Archives Education Department. I noticed many popular documents were in need of attention and treatments, some of these being iconic documents. They were required for use in school curriculum sessions taught at the National Archives. However, they were not part of any existing projects on the yearly collection care business plan. My project proposal to work with highly used documents was accepted, and it was agreed that I should monitor, document and carry out interventive treatments when necessary on those items most highly used by our education team and also through general use at the National Archives. This work with education-viewed documents gives the high-use document team some challenging treatment decisions and an eclectic mix of archival documents to work with, many being iconic and irreplaceable, such as Henry VIII's will, coloured illuminations of historic monarchy, and original handwritten letters and signed treaties. Here is a brief explanation of how high-use information is gathered. When a document is ordered in the reading room by a member of the public, it is recorded on the National Archives document ordering system, and it is possible to create a count of these orders. This is explained on the left side, and it is referred to as high-use general. On the right of the chart is a description of how high use is generated by our Education and Outreach Department. These documents are ordered through the National Archives system only once during a term or school year, yet they are produced for education and school groups many times, even in just a week. Our high-use team records the weekly list of documents from education as a tally, and we endeavour to monitor the documents accordingly. This is referred to as high-use education. "10 years of high-use data. How do we use it and what have we learnt?" So, once a year, we request a list of the top 100 most highly ordered documents from the National Archives IT systems. This is compared with previous years, and the relevant documents are monitored and their condition is recorded. High use with education is recorded weekly and manually by the high use document team. It is easier to work with school year and term times. The most highly used education documents are monitored in readiness for any treatment, rehousing during the school holidays when they are not frequently in use. There is a constant challenge treating and rehousing when access is regularly required by the public and education, so planning is involved and the team needs to be flexible and accommodate readers' requests where possible. Many of the same flat artworks are used every year. Environmental data, fade testing and magnified pigment spot checks can also be checked. We are able to check if a document is highly used before it is considered to go out on loan or exhibition, and of its past and future environmental vulnerability. It can prompt a discussion as to if it is sustainable or safe to send a document out on a loan. We have learnt the recent emphasis on risk assessment of documents, which may put a different weight on viewing and access versus risk. We, as conservation practitioners, are not the sole stakeholders responsible for assessing these risks. Our audience, our public and staff departments, also need to consider risk when using documents. In 2020, we tried to map the prediction of specific popular documents from studying a 5-year period, as seen here on this graph. This proved to be inconclusive, with documents tending to go in and out of fashion. A comparison of 10 years' worth of the top 100 most highly used documents is a more useful indicator for documents requiring assessment and treatment if necessary, also as an indicator for possible digitisation. We have learnt that high use can make a document popular for a limited amount of time. For example, New Year's openings and of previous closed documents, wars and treaties, and historic maps and plans when modern building developments come into action. Documents then fall out of favour over the next few years, making digitisation non-viable. The realisation 10 years on is that commercial finance dictates our digitisation programme. Documents that are highly used and not part of a funded digitisation project have many hurdles to pass before digitisation can be considered. I would also like to add here that as far as popular documents for education sessions are concerned, originals are required for impact and a memorable experience for the audience. So, overwhelmed by the amount of documents requiring attention to start, it was best to complete a monitor and capture images, prioritise and carry out immediate urgent treatment required to stabilise torn and detached pages and detached pendant seals, etc., with the help of a dedicated team of colleagues from collection care. A year or so later, it became apparent that there were documents in specific series that required attention, notably the handwritten state paper volumes. Due to much handling over the years, deckled page edges of these types of volume, mainly iron gall ink on paper, have become fragile and required support around the foredges. Lessons learnt here were that due to past treatments and highly sized papers, new trends in treating with remoistenable papers were not very successful for high use, and the repairs popped off when seen on the monitor the following year. A more successful and durable repair were those made with a 3% gelatin solution and sympathetic Japanese papers such as Usumino and Tengujo, but avoiding the written iron gall ink on application. Remoistenable repairs only needed to be used within the flat text areas, if at all, and interleaving is another option. Another scenario is shown here. Here you can see before and after treatments of this state paper volume. The page has been repaired, but the risk of the damage has been exacerbated by the bulk and format of the sewn-in notebook behind the page, which we will see on the next slide. Over time and much use, the page has become damaged unknowingly, whereby it could not lie flat. And demonstrated here, where you can see the booklet and the need for interventive paper guards, which I inserted either side of the sewn-in booklet to alleviate damage to adjacent distorted pages. Regular handling and use. Over 10 years, you may ask, have the document's themes changed in education sessions? Education have a varied and larger selection of documents used in their sessions, and this can change with the school curriculum. We have encouraged the rotation and alteration of some of the more vulnerable popular documents and use of facsimiles in some cases. Since the start of the project, the high-use document list has grown from 270 to 560 for education-viewed documents. Document handling sessions are given to all new readers when they obtain a reader's pass. Staff too require and are reminded of regular document handling skills. School groups are given a basic run-through of caring for documents, and students are invigilated whilst on site. To enhance the materiality awareness of documents, in 2015, archive material experience booklets were created by the high-use document team to be handed out in school education sessions. This touching experience helps to create an awareness of the vulnerability of paper, books and manuscripts, since reading from a tablet or phone is now the norm for our younger generations. Working with a variety of archival material, it is important to draw attention to how different materials and substrates react to multiple handlings, and of intuitive reasons for when and how to treat, repair if necessary. On the left, you will see a well-used folder of World War II London bomb mappings and overlays in transparent papers. Again, the poor quality materials of the day did not lend themselves to the amount of future use for historical purposes, and in one way, the maps have served their original purpose. It is only later that we realise that many architects, surveyors and historians wish to consult these original plans and overlays with specific bombing dates and positions. On the right, you will see a very popular World War II propaganda poster design. It is the artist's original artwork. The collaged pieces have become detached, some lost before the start of the high-use project. Going back to the World War II bomb maps, with 122 maps and overlays in this folder, it was impractical to repair each map and fragile transparent overlay. So a speedier technique was used, bridging the gaps and tears around the edges, as seen on the left, and also to holistically consider why was the damage occurring. Too many papers all in one folder, and readers not requiring to view every map leads to unfortunate damage. It was necessary to regroup and implement subsidiary folders. In a sense, the materiality, the poor quality papers times by the use, has led us to a reformatting and rehousing solution. Here you can see yearly monitoring resulting in a new bespoke rehousing design for 9 of the most highly used illuminated King's Bench 27s. They were originally extracted and reformatted as single items in the 1950s. Historical reformatting and extraction of the previous century has led us to consider these objects as single items rather than illuminated frontispieces of original plea rolls. It was necessary to assess and rehouse these single parchment items after observations made from continual high-use monitoring. A more robust housing has been created to alleviate pressure and contact from above, created by a deeper window mount, which is there, and extra plastazote protection on the base, along there, for cushioning during events and transportation, and a photographic reference on the front cover to alleviate unnecessary opening of the housing, just there. Regular Dynalight magnified monitoring of specific points have not yet detected any loss of pigments in this example. Should we retreat? It is necessary to reassess previous treatment through the high-use project. This we have learned as seemingly good interventive techniques do not always stand up to repeated use and transportation. For example, the use of remoistenable tissues, as mentioned earlier. Most often it is limited time that dictates the reason the document is treated only at the most damaged areas. Later on, previous weak material, pages, bindings, also start to break down with general mechanical use. Depending on the fragility and past storage, a document may require additional treatments. Housings often require repair or renewal on highly used documents, and often custom-made housing is more appropriate. The housing and the renewal of this is serving its purpose by protecting the document. It is not only visually that we engage and gain from our archives. There has been a recent pilot project run by the National Archives Education and Outreach Department, working with the visually impaired audience. As one of the many stakeholders for this event, the benefit gained for our audience outweighed the risks whilst using carefully chosen original documents and one-to-one supervision. Tactile, braille-like versions of the documents and maps were also introduced. The feedback from these sessions was tremendously positive. Along the path and experience gained from studying high use, and for our aim to allow accessibility, we have learned to promote the hands-on experience whilst respecting the document's materiality and fragility. In some cases, we may wish to create barriers of protection and create a hands-off experience, a look but don't touch. These ideas were further contemplated last year in a National Archives discussion group session that I arranged named Please Touch, Don't Touch, with invited conservation guest speaker, Professor Jane Henderson from Cardiff University, Wales. Jane's research questioning, who are we conserving for, and the value of touch experiences, really fed into and led these conversations. We invited colleagues from across the organisation involved in delivering education and outreach engagement, document services, conservation and preservation, events and exhibitions, and conservation student interns at the time. The session included a visual display with sensory objects, a questionnaire, several interesting presentations, and group table discussions prompted by the questions on this slide. This is an ongoing discussion and dialogue, and earlier this year I ran a follow-on session with our education and outreach colleagues in order to dive deeper into their developing needs and to understand how we can work together to provide sustainable and inclusive access. The picture on this screen is an example solution whilst working with tally sticks. Here I will demonstrate one of our compromising solutions. On the left, the slide shows a highly used box of tally sticks, often used by groups in education. These 13th century wooden tally sticks were a form of receipt for government income. In 1834, most of the remaining UK government tally sticks were destroyed in a fateful fire. The fire also largely destroyed the Palace of Westminster, which was the British Parliament. So, these tallies are now rare and iconic. The old-style housing requires updating and would involve much preparation work and time resource, as they require to be catalogued and put into order. The tallies are loose in compartments and housed with non-archival materials. As you can see through the High Use project, we have rehoused one tray during 2018 with plastizote protection and a removable, if necessary, acrylic cover as seen on the right. Working with education, we also produce 3D printed replicas to be handed round in sessions rather than the originals which could get lost or broken. 7 years on from rehousing the first tray, we are in the process of rehousing more original tally sticks in sealed trays for use in multiple education sessions. These rare iconic medieval relics are part of our government's cultural history. By assessing the access need and overall benefit of the audience, the conclusion is for a look but don't touch experience for education classroom sessions, overruled by risk, potential loss and fragility, and the 3D printed tally sticks are a compromise. They look and feel much the same as the wooden ones and can be touched whilst viewing the protected originals. Over 10 years, and bearing in mind that nearly all of our collection is accessible, the High Use team has sought to improve handling and the transportation of the documents. Collection Care Preventative Team provides ongoing advice and best handling practice with sufficient handling aids. However, with an ever-changing workforce and high production demands, repeated handling guidance and practice is a proven necessity. We can never overemphasize the need for careful handling, particularly with high use, be it with moving a document or viewing it. After all, high use does dictate a risk, and we do need to put measures in place, interventively and preventively, to continue our cultural heritage historical journey. To conclude, we have learned from monitoring that popular documents may come back for interventive treatments later on, as edges become friable and use takes its toll. We can, however, choose to accept wear and tear and damage as a natural change. We have learnt adaptive strategies to be more considerate in our appreciation of our audience. A facsimile or digital image may not hit the spot, but it is sometimes a viable option. But we need to get the balance right. Opening up and allowing our audience a better opportunity of gaining access to originals and developing these opportunities for diverse groups, such as visually impaired, we realise the immense pleasure of viewing original documents and artworks and appreciate this as being something very special. And to reiterate, the National Archives is the public record office. Along the 10-year path, the High Use Document Project aims remain the same, those being to allow access whilst preserving the nation's public records. And I'd like to just say thank you for listening. I would like to acknowledge and express my thanks to all who have contributed to the project over the past 10 years. Thank you.